In just 7 months, Labour has already let down millions of British people. Many hoped for change, but frustration is setting in fast. Meanwhile, after 14 years in power, the Tories didn't exactly leave behind a legacy of progress either. People were already fed up with them. And now, in a fiery exchange in Parliament, Conservative MP Andrew Bowie attempted to call out the Labour government. But in an unexpected twist, Labour MP Michael Shanks turned the tables, leaving Bowie exposed instead. Watch this clip to see how it all unfolded.
Shadow Minister Andrew Bowie.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I also must apologise. I'm sure the House is getting a little bit fed up with myself and the Minister this afternoon. And I thank the Minister for advance sight of this statement. Although I must say that in the past few weeks it has been difficult not to feel at least a little bit sorry for ministers in the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. First, their Secretary of State was forced out of hiding to defend a third runway at Heathrow, something the Secretary of State said once that we couldn't do because it would make us look completely ridiculous. They've had Cornwall Insight state they're going to miss their clean power target by, and I quote, a country mile. And they're getting ready, as I think was clear during the last urgent question, to be overruled by the Prime Minister and approve the oil and gas fields at Rosebank and Jackdaw, something that we would be very welcoming of on this side of the House. And now, the Secretary of State has sent the Honourable Gentleman to the House this afternoon to defend the farce of chopping down trees in forests in Canada, converting them into pellets, shipping them across the Atlantic on diesel-chugging ships and burning them in a power station in North Yorkshire, all in the name of net zero. Now, the Conservative Party is under new management, and that means confronting hard truths. So let's get one thing straight from the outset. Drax's biomass plant is not clean, nor is it cheap. Let's be clear. As the Right Honourable Lady for Surrey East has said, burning wood from the other side of the Atlantic, releasing more CO2 in the process, and labelling it as renewable is a product of carbon budget system which forces politicians to make perverse decisions. Decisions, Madam Deputy Speaker, which result in an extortionate level of subsidy, deliver a bad deal for British taxpayers and bill payers, and make the climate worse. We've started a reset on net zero, and we will not shy away from arguing for a more pragmatic approach, which prioritises cheap, stable and reliable energy. Turning to the details of the statement today, we naturally welcome a more limited role for Drax biomass in our power system, but we should be clear that more biomass subsidies are only needed in the short term, because this government is embarking on a reckless experiment to have a grid based entirely on intermittent renewables at the expense of flexible and reliable baseload power. Drax's role could be filled with more gas power plants, which are cheaper and cleaner than burning trees shipped in from Canada. Ministers know that burning wood at Drax produces 4 times the emissions of our last coal power plant, which in turn produces around twice the carbon emissions of gas. That's gas that we could get from the non-subsidised fields in the North Sea if this government weren't in such an ideological rush to shut down our domestic energy industry. So on the question of cost, the new agreement that the Minister has signed us up to comes with a strike price that is genuinely eye-watering, at £160 per megawatt hour in today's money. That's actually higher than Drax's existing agreement of £138 per megawatt hour. And in fact, the Baringa analysis that Drax has put out this morning shows that bill payers will still be paying over £450 million a year in subsidies to burn trees. Now, if the analysis behind the Minister's promise to cut bills by £300 is anything to go by, we should know not to rely on them by too much. So can I ask, has his department carried out any of its own independent analysis, separate to that which was published by Drax this morning, to determine at what the increased strike price will cost the British people and how that compares to supporting extra gas power in the capacity market? We welcome the strength of sustainability criteria, as investigations by Ofgem and the BBC Panorama have shown that there are serious questions to be answered by Drax around the import of wood from untouched primary forests in British Columbia. But as the BBC journalist Joe Crowley, who reported on these issues for Panorama, stated this morning, more clarity is needed on whether wood from primary forests will be classed as unsustainable under this new regime. So can the Minister confirm that Drax will not be allowed to burn wood from primary forests during any of its generation, not just that which is subsidised? And what work is being done to make sure that the new sustainability criteria is actually enforceable? And on the subject of sustainability reporting, can the Minister also confirm the Department has received the KPMG report that the Prime Minister said he would look at and confirm whether they will be placing a copy in the library of the House? I note that the Minister's statement has left the door wide open for the introduction of power BECS after these transition arrangements end in 2031. That proposal, to fit first-of-a-kind technology solely for the purpose of meeting our carbon budgets, would cost the bill payer up to £40 billion, or £1.7 billion a year. That, we believe, is unacceptable. So can the Minister confirm to the House whether his department has produced any analysis of what a system without BECS would cost, and will they rule out keeping this racket going indefinitely and seeing people's energy bills rise as a result to pay for BECS? And will the government set a date for the last tree to be burnt in a British biomass power station? Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has been promising us clean, cheap, homegrown energy, but burning trees at Drax is not clean, it's not cheap, and the trees are certainly not homegrown. And if the widespread burning of forests is part of the solution to climate change, then we have to ask ourselves if that's the problem we are trying to solve.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I mean, under new management, indeed, I think the tough thing about being the acting Shadow Secretary of State is, of course, it's not his script that he's reading out. And we are, on this side, fixing the mistakes that the previous government left. And I would just gently point out that 8 previous Conservative energy ministers stood on this side of the dispatch box and deal after deal after deal announced a worse deal than this for bill payers, for energy security, for sustainability, and he seems to forget that today. In fact, I mean, only a year ago, such is my love of the honourable gentleman's contributions in this House, I was reading up on Hanson. Only a year ago, he was saying that he had absolute confidence in the deal that the previous government made with Drax. And so, on his questions, let me just outline why this deal is so different from his party's deals in the past. First, he asked about the question of subsidy. He mentions the figure of what this will cost to deliver the dispatchable power he needs. He missed the fact that, of course, this is half what was paid under the previous government, nearly £1 billion a year paid by the previous government to Drax. We've halved that to lower subsidies to lower bills for consumers. Secondly, he spoke about the sustainability questions, and we agree on the importance of tightening up the sustainability. That's why we've moved from the 70% to the 100%. Of course, I would gently say again, he was quite happy to support, when he was in the Energy Department, public money going into that unsustainable biomass year after year after year. We are saying if there is unsustainable biomass in the mix, we will not pay a penny of subsidy to Drax. And thirdly, of course, what the previous government didn't do was any sort of deal to control the runaway profits that Drax, the excess profits, the record profits that Drax were able to obtain as part of the deal that they had with them. We have put in place a mechanism to claw back that excess profit so that the people of this country don't pay over the odds for their energy. And fourthly, and let me just make this point about energy security, which I think is so important. The party opposite exposed us year after year after year to a lack of a plan for what the energy system would look like in the late 2020s and into the 2030s. We've had to take tough decisions quickly to secure that supply for the future, and that's what we've decided to do. And even running Drax when it wasn't necessary, when there were clean, cheaper alternatives in the system, we have decided that that will not happen. And that's why, to his specific point around Drax running less, limited generation times mean that it will only run when we need it for capacity, for demand in the system. And the alternative, which he asked for the figure, which I said in the statement, would be £170 million more every single year. On the final point around the future of BECS, we are open-minded at this point about what role BECS will play, but I do agree with them that it is important we come to a decision point on it soon. The review that we've outlined is about taking all the various bits of science that we know are already there in different reports, but trying to work out a credible pathway for whether power BECS will really play a role in the system or not, and we'll make that decision as soon as possible. But I would just finish, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying that this is an extremely different deal, one that it delivers a benefit for the hard-working people of this country, that ensures sustainability is at the heart of it, and that protects our energy security in the years ahead.
What are your thoughts on Labour and the Tories? Have they truly delivered on their promises, or just let people down? If you want more people to see the reality of both parties, don't forget to like and share this video. Let's make sure everyone knows the full story.